God, I've been watching that video for 7 years and I always cry. I wanted to share that video with you this morning because it's a quick way to share with you what I've been doing with the last 13 years of my life. I had the privilege of walking alongside Brian for 10 years, seeing him as a little boy in the streets who could barely fit on the bike to hitting about 16 and a half and spending the last year and a half in a juvenile detention center. Been an honor to serve Brian, and I remember when this video first came out, he would come to my office, and I just knew that he was going through a hard day, and he'd want to watch it with me because it gave him an excuse to cry. Because when you're growing up in that environment and things are that hard, you're just taught that there's not an opportunity to cry. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So if you guys know the drill, if you have a Facebook enabled device, jump on that. You have no idea how these videos go out and how they change people's lives. And for those who weren't able to make it today, and I know there's people pretty much around the country right now that are watching because they want to hear what's going on. So do that, please. Also, just want to give a shout out to my King of Wings and Ricoli fan out there, my fam out there. Appreciate my boys coming in today. So those of you that have been following us, sorry, let me get my wits about me. Those of you who've been following along in this series and what's going on, you know that we're doing this Freaks and Geeks series, and I think everybody's kind of touched on, those are some words that we're trying to be really careful in using. And basically we decided as a staff, as a teaching team, that we wanted you to get to know a little bit more about us, and this seemed like the best venue to do that. And in the midst of sharing who we are and why we do what we do, we're trying to pair it with a portion of scripture that will also speak a little deeper to your heart. So many of you know me as Gabe Hernandez. I'm called G, I'm called X. I'm Reverend, I'm pastor, I'm known by a lot of things. But here are some things you probably don't know about me, is that I'm an ex-gangbanger. I'm an ex-drug addict, ex-methamphetamine addict. I'm an ex-con. I'm an ex-violent lowlife, an abuser. And I can go on and on and on. But you know what? Today, I'm a lover of one woman, of my wife, Kim. And we're going to celebrate I'm getting choked up. We're going to celebrate 4 years of marriage in 11 days. Thank you. I'm a family member. I'm a husband, like I said. I'm a son to Connie and Jesus Hernandez. I'm a brother to Mike, Dan, and Angel. I'm an uncle and a thunkle, and I'll explain that. I'm an uncle. I have 8 nieces and nephews, but I also have some adopted nieces and nephews, and they call me Thunkle. They're thug uncle. And it's funny because they're little white kids too. That's really cute. So shout out to Liam, Truly, Lucas, and Maddox, if you guys are watching. I'm thunkle to them. I'm a friend, which I'm lucky to have people in this room that support me in the good things and the bad things. I'm a lover of food. If you spend time around me, you know I not only love to eat, I love to eat good food, but I love to cook good food. I love to grow my own produce. I love, again, cooking. I love serving more than anything else. I love hospitality. I love hosting. I love being parts of groups and having all kinds of different stories come together and meld together. I'm a lover of art, and whether you like it or not, I'm a tattoo artist. I've been tattooing for over 26 years, and I'm going to keep doing it because of the relationships that get to build. I'm a graffiti artist, legally, not illegally. I've been asked to leave my mark around here. Okay, Lee said I could do it. Do murals, I do whatever I can to express this abstract mind. I'm a lover of people, one who served and fed communities. I've been out of the country. I've been out of my comfort zone. And the one thing I realized with my life is that I just want to be a heartbeat. I want to be a beacon when I step into a room. I've spent most of my life in rehabilitation programs. I've spent most of my life in jail and in prison. I've spent most of my life in ignorance of what God has called and created me to do. I've been angry, I've been depressed, I've been upset, I've been let down, I've been abandoned. I've been a lot of things. I spent a lot of my life loving someone or something that I wasn't supposed to. I was raised by a single mother. I was abandoned by my father. I was mistreated because I was biracial. I was misunderstood due to circumstances that are completely out of my control, and I was ignored because I was told my voice didn't count. I've been threatened by all sorts of weapons, physical harm, and even death. I've been shot at and they barely missed. I've been beaten by both those who said they've loved me and hated me. I've been abused by those who said they should have protected me. And I've been given up on and thrown away. But you know what? I've stolen from those who've trusted me. I've lied to those who believed in me. I've hurt those who loved me. And I've abandoned those who stood by me. And you know, I hear more than often, wow, man, you have this great story to tell, Gabe. But you know what? I bet my life may not have played out like yours. I bet the details are a little different, but I bet the underlying current of why I did what I did is very similar to everything you've been through. It's selfishness, it's disobedience, it's arrogance, it's ignorance. You know, we're not so different. My path may have taken a different set of steps, but again, like I said, the underlying current of why we end up where we end up is the same everyone in this room. Check and see. Okay, we're PG-13 in here. All right, good. I'm going to use some words today, like whoredom, wanton, vicious, nasty, perverse, promiscuous, prostitution, obstinate, wasteful, unrestrained, and immoral behavior. Everything that reflects a lot of who we are and why we do what we do when we're in disobedience, or when we walk away from God, or when we separate ourselves from people that love us. You know, my first God sighting, if I had to look back, was when I was 28 years old. Yeah, I grew up Catholic and I was in programs and I had people come and try to talk to me about God, but there was no relationship wrapped with that. It was just people trying to tell me about a God so they can change me. And I honestly believe they wanted to change me just because it was very hard to deal with me. It was like, man, if we could just change this dude real quick, it'd be easier to tolerate him. They didn't want to change me because they wanted to see me benefit the community or society that was involved in. But at 28 years old, I had a God sighting, and it was me and God. I was high on methamphetamine, and I was in a jail cell. I was in a jail cell by myself, thrown away, stripped down with a straitjacket on, blood leaking from my face, and words coming out of my mouth because my mind was completely out of control. They put a stopwatch on, and they were counting the hours for me to continue to be crazy so that they could send me away to a mental hospital. And I'm sitting in this room, and I absolutely deserved to be there because of the way I lived my life. I got released out on parole again for the 100th time. My brother had again picked me up and brought me home, and within minutes of reaching the streets that I was on, I got high on meth. After every promise, after every intent, every desire to want to change, it had such a hold on me. Within minutes, I was high on meth. And I'm sitting in this room, and I remember this man walking past me, and he was literally walking by just to check to see if I was still alive and not hurting myself. And he shook his head like he was disgusted with me. And I believe I had like this moment of clarity where it was like, you know what? You're not going to shake your head at me like you feel sorry for me. You're not going to shake your head at me like you're disgusted with me. And I remember getting enraged and getting angry. And it was like this moment of clarity came over where I had heard somewhere in my life that if you ever needed God, he was going to be there for you. And I could look back over my life and say, man, I needed him a lot and felt like he was never there. But I'm sitting there. I'm in this little tiny cell, the cinder block cell, and I just look up to the lights and I say, God, I don't want to effing be like this. And you know what the biggest shame is that it's not that I want to cuss in church, but it's that I can't say that because it's going to offend somebody's sensibility, or it's vulgar, or it's not proper. But you know what, man? If God can't handle my ignorance, if he can't handle my vulgarity, then I don't need him. I don't go to God. I mean, that's what we do. We go to God, we bring him the easy stuff, and then we hide everything that's bad. And we wonder why things blow up, and you wonder why we fail so hard, because we're so busy trying to hide the vulgarity. We're so busy trying to hide the profanity, the sickness, the whoredom in our lives, and we keep it back. And then there's this explosion of sin in our lives because we're so busy taking God the little candy cakes, like, oh, here, God, I did this, or here, God, I did that. And I'm so glad that in that moment that some person wasn't there, some condescending person trying to tell me about how much God loved me and how he for so loved the world and blah, blah, blah. Man, I'm so glad that I was by myself, because now that I know it's real now. I know it's real now. I sat there and I looked up and I said an F word, and God healed me instantly and put something in my heart that I wanted to change. You know, I was hanging out with Kellen on Wednesday. And I debated whether or not to say this, but I was hanging out with him because I love that guy. And we started sharing about where we fail and where we struggle. And immediately, because he's an artist, he's a worship artist, we started talking about the song, Come Thou Fount. It's both one of our favorite songs, and it's because we know in our hearts. Part of the song says, "Oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let that goodness like a fetter bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wonder, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, Lord. Oh, take it and seal it. Seal it for that court's above." I remember the first time I heard that, and that's why it's been so hard to follow Jesus. That's why it's been so hard to love God, because that's me right there. Man, if I could give you the locks, God, just put them on me so I don't run anymore. But he gives us the option to roam free. And we talked about that, and it was like, man, every failure, every struggle, everything that's ever bound us and kept us away from doing what God created and called us to do has been because we're wanderers, because we're whores, because we intimately get involved with the things in life that we were not called to be a part of. Go ahead and take a deep breath. Go ahead and sigh. I mean, I know you've heard this before. And in the midst of this great moment that God's like, man, he heals me, and I get sent back, and I decide to quit gangbanging. I decide to change my life for real. I open up the Bible, and not only did he heal me, did I read the Bible for the first time, and the verse wrecked me so much that I wanted to be changed. And I'm like, things are going to be different. And when I get out, man, I'm going to go forward. And I'm just going to do everything the right way. And I get released, and I'm high within 25 days. Again, prone to wonder. You know, I remember sitting in a jail cell after I got caught yet again. I remember sitting in a jail cell, and it's a couple of hours before I'm supposed to be released, and the guard comes by and says, hey, don't get prepared to release, man, or to be released. There's new charges being filed against you. And I'm thinking, oh, man, I'm ready to go home, man. My bags are packed, man. I'm standing by the door. I got 4 hours before I'm supposed to go home. And I remember sitting in this cell by myself, and I remember, again, just kind of looking up to the bunk, and I said, God, if you get me out of this, I'll serve you. I don't know how you've said it before in your life. Maybe you've said it the same exact way, but I can probably be assured that just about everybody in here has said that in one way, shape, or form. Been in a situation where it's been hard and cried out to whatever God you believe and said, you know what, man, if you could just take this away from me, man, I'll give you everything that I am. If you can get me through this, I'll do a little better later. Or maybe it's verbatim, God, if you get me out of this, I'll serve you, because I'm sick and tired of going through this. And the doors open again, and I get let out, and again I fail. Again I fail, prone to wonder, prone to go back to what is delightful. I just wanted to take those couple of minutes just to give you an idea of the person that I am, what's going on, and I would love to share a little bit more deeper with you on a personal level, my story when we get the chance. But I really want to tie it together with Scripture and what God has put on my heart. So I want to be talking out of I'm going to be talking out of the book of Hosea this morning, chapter 3, verses 1 and 3. There's Bibles in front of you in the pews, the black books. They're free. Feel free to take one if you need it, if you want one, but they're there for you. Hosea is going to be kind of in the middle. And the Word of God says this: Then the Lord said to me, go again and show love to a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress, just as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods and raisin cakes. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and 5 bushels of barley. And I said to her, you must live with me many days. Don't be promiscuous or belong to any man, and I will act the same way to you. Now, this is probably not your Sunday school classic, okay? You're not going to be teaching this to the kiddies, talking about prostos and all that stuff that's going on, right? Also, it's got a lot of language in there. It's like, okay, raisin cakes. Like, I like raisin toast. I don't know, man. I like raisin toast in my coffee, my milk sometimes, right? Like, a lot of it doesn't really make sense when you read it, but what really hits home, and I think when we read it, is here's God telling this man to go love a prostitute, not for the first time, but again, implying multiple times. Like, why would God tell him to do that? So I'm reading this word, and I know there's deeper connotations of the Israelites and the people of God and all the things that are going on. It's 14 chapters. It's one of two of the biggest minor prophet books, and there's all these connotations, but I just want to focus on this one thing. I want to focus on Hosea and his prostitute wife, Gomer, and I want to connect it back to my life. In Hosea chapter 1, verse 2, and I'm sorry, it's not going to be on the screen. I just decided to throw this in. It's the very beginning of the book, and it says, when the Lord first spoke through Hosea, he said to him, go and take yourself a wife of whoredom and have children of whoredom, for the land commits great whoredom by forsaking the Lord. So here's God telling this man to go find a prostitute, to have children of prostitution, because the whole land is basically acting like prostitutes. And I remember reading this for the first time and thinking, man, I must have got the wrong Bible. Like, somebody edited this the wrong way. You know what I mean? Because, not only is he told to marry a prostitute, and he's comparing it to the people of God, and he's comparing it to the way that we behave and all this stuff, but then he says, go have children with her. And then the names of the children, I don't know how far you guys have gotten or if you've even read it, but like their first kid comes out and the name is like No Compassion. Like, I know I've seen some bad kids before. You ever been to Walmart? Man, this little kid, that's thug training ground right there, man. These kids is bad out there, man. You know what I mean? There's a couple of times I've been at Walmart and be like, that No Compassion right there. That is no compassion right there. But then the second child is like named Not My People, man. Like, what's going on here? Marry a prostitute, name your kids some crazy names. Okay, what's really going on? And like I said, I know there's deeper connotations of what's going on, but there's this whole idea of redemption. Later on, God says, I'm going to call them my people. And later on, I'm going to call them compassion. And it's the beginning of redemption. It's the beginning of setting things back in order where God says, I love you regardless or in spite of yourself. And he says, not only that, he goes, I'm going to change your wife too. But he's got to change his heart first. So it's this interesting situation that's going on. And I keep reading. So we find Hosea in chapter 3, verse 1. Sorry, I'm getting excited right now because I get to call people bad names right now. So Lee's back there ready to pull the plug. Look, man, he went straight back to the computer in case he's got to pull Facebook Live, right? Ain't gonna happen, dog. I got 2 more cameras, all right? We really out here, gang. So he basically, man, this is, I love doing this, man. So we find Hosea being told to go love this lady again. But it's not the love that we take for granted. It's this love to make a commitment, to keep his commitment, to pursue her even though she's been captured by another's love and has left him. Think about that. When I was talking about my disobedience and trying to connect it with where I know we all fail, and how we try to submit these very easy little sins and things and how we fail God, man. Think about that I've made a commitment to God. He's made a commitment to me. And he keeps his commitment even though I pursue these things that make me look promiscuous. Basically to the point that she had given her heart, her mind, her body, and her soul to another. We see that he says, and you're to go love this person. You're to go love this person regardless if she's turned to another God or not. Sorry, man, I hate electronics. I jumped ahead way too much. All right, let's swear him back on track. There we go. So we see that Hosea is not just going to go in and claim him for herself. We can see that because it says, God says, go show her love again, even though she's loved by another man. So there's going to be a point of contention there. He's going to be walking into somebody else's house, somebody else's land, and he's going to be saying, oh yeah, by the way, that's my wife right there. And it's, nah, she belongs to me, bro. I would not want to be that guy. I'm sorry. And the next verse says that he brought 15 shekels of silver and 5 bushels of barley, which I know means absolutely nothing to anybody here unless you deal in the Hebrew market, right? Anybody? No, okay. Basically what he's saying is in those days, 15 pieces of silver or 5 bushels of barley was the price of what it took to buy a farm animal or to purchase a slave. So he walks in and he says, here's every penny that I have, and I'm going to pay it. I'm going to pay the 15. This is the whole amount that I have, and I'm willing to pay it. But then he doubles it with this property because it matches. So he not only paid everything he had once, he paid everything he had twice, if you think about it for a second. For somebody who had given their heart away to somebody else. Can you imagine standing there? I mean, it's not going to happen. I don't know anybody in this room that would be willing to do that. But because his love is so great, she's worth giving it all. One of the things I found in my studies is, I don't want to nerd out too much because I know we'll start to lose you guys, but the Septuagint is basically the Old Testament that has been translated into Greek, and that was to make sure that it can reach the generation at the time. The Septuagint reads like this. It says that so I went and hired her for myself. I went and hired her for myself. So there's a different connotation than going and buying something back and going back and hiring her, showing that she wasn't a piece of property to be bought back. She was actually working in a desired, what's the word I'm looking for? Man, I'm trying to keep this PG-13. She's working in a profession that she's perfectly happy in doing. And so I went and hired her back for the same amount. I couldn't imagine what it would be like. And when I sit and I look back at my life and I start to think about everything that's done to me, and I'm sitting in that jail cell and I'm covered in blood and I'm wrapped in a straitjacket and I'm looking up for the first time in my life and I'm asking God to heal me. It was in that moment he was saying, you know what, I'm buying you back from every dirty thing you've ever done. I'm hiring you back, Gabe. I'm buying your allegiance by washing this away. I couldn't imagine being the one on the other side. But he says to her, and this is not conditional. I think we read it in verse 3. I said to her, you must live with me many days. Don't be promiscuous any longer. Don't belong to any man, and I'll act the same way. It's not as conditional as we like to read it. What it's saying is, if you look at it in the way that everything is paired in the original language, everything he's saying is paired together. It's not one individual word. It's you must, don't be, I will act. And he says this, you must live. I need you to dwell with me. I need you to be with me. I need you to have the commitment to stay with me, to sit with me, and to abide with me. I don't want you to play the whore anymore. This is asking. It's not conditional. It's not like don't do it. I don't want you to play the whore anymore. I don't want you to wander. I don't want you to be unfaithful anymore. I don't want you to leave me. And the last one is I will act. As you are with me, I will be with you regardless. But I will be the example of the expectation of what I want you to be. Hosea paid everything twice. He gave everything monetarily. He gave everything in his possession. He was basically being a foreshadowing of Christ to come. I started thinking about this, and I hope this is one of the taglines that you take home. How many of us make God rent us? How many of us make God rent us? You can have me for a little bit, God, but you have to do this. I'm telling you, this building is loud, man. It hasn't been this loud since a month ago. Creaking and moaning and groaning, man. If you give me this, I'll love you just for a little bit. You're not buying me. You don't own me. I'm not fully sold out or given to you. You're renting me. I'll be yours on Sunday, but the rest of the week I'm mine. I'll be yours at Life Group. I'll be yours every once in a while when I dig down deep and grab some change and give it to a homeless person so I can pat myself on the back. We do nothing but rent ourselves to God, and in that, we're just perpetuating the idea that prostitution is okay. And this is what we're teaching other people. I started thinking about, just this fill in the blank scenario, because I know we're different, we have different lives. It's almost like, God, if you blank, fill in the blank. What's the condition that you place upon God before you allow him to rent you, not even buy you? If my health, if my home, if my life, if my work, if my finances line up, God, then you can have me for a little while, but you can't own me. What is it in this world that can be worth making God rent you? And this guy was obedient. This guy did it. And this guy was the example of pure redemption and reconciliation and restoration. So I started with this video this morning of this kid, Brian. This young man who came into my life, and in the video, and I'll say it 100 times over, was an honor and privilege to be able to serve, no matter how hard it was. Believe me, and I hope he's watching right now. And then we moved on to this scripture, and I want to tie the two together by telling you this story. And this is really hard, because this is going to be the first time that I've ever really shared this story publicly. And I'm ready for the consequences if there are any. Because I'm tired of bringing the little things to God. I want to bring the big things. There was a time about 6-7 years ago that I was struggling with my calling. I was struggling with my life. I was struggling with where I wanted to be. I was overwhelmed and under-resourced, and I wasn't taking advantage of what I had, the network that I had set up. And I kind of went ghost. I kind of went rogue, and I started drinking a lot in my little apartment. In the beginning, it just started real easy. As I'd keep the beer up in a cabinet to keep it away from the kids, because I had a lot of kids over, and I'd keep it up there, and when I'd get home, I'd grab 2 out and throw them in the freezer, and I'd make myself dinner, and I'd have 2. Within a week or 2, I was pulling out 4, and then the whole 6-pack, and before you know it, I wasn't even hiding it anymore. I was just keeping it in the fridge and putting food around it so the kids wouldn't see it. So I started drinking really bad. I started getting drunk every single night. And then something was set in my heart, just this fire was set back up to go get high, to go get meth. And I started thinking to myself, I was like, man, where am I going to get this at? I don't know. I've been out of the game so long. I bet I pull up somewhere, man, and these guys rob me or shoot me or something. So there was a little bit of fear. But my desire to want to get high, the desire to want to whore myself out, the desire to, because I was so intimately involved in that drug and what it can do for me and make me feel, I put all caution to the wind. And I stopped carrying money with me. I stopped carrying cash, because I lived in a neighborhood where I was constantly getting asked. And I can honestly tell them when I open up my wallet, I don't have any cash. And the kids would ask me for cash, so I never had any cash on me. So I got up, and it was about midnight. And I remember getting on my car and having to drive down to the bank. And I remember pulling money out, and I remember driving around this neighborhood just looking for somebody, having the courage to ask them if they had what I was looking for. First couple of times I didn't find anybody, and I went home really disappointed, and I think that really fed into my depression and my desire to want to get high more. Next day I'd get up, and same thing. I'd get up in the morning before I go to work. I'd put the money right back in because I didn't want to have it. And I'm pulling the money out again, and this guy comes up to my window, and it's after midnight, and it's in a bad neighborhood, and I yell at him, and he backs away from the car, and I get the cash out, and he says, "Hey, man, I'm just looking for some change, man. I'm hungry." And I said, "The only problem with that is I don't have change. Do you have change for a 20? And he goes, "Of course I don't." And I rolled my window up and said, "Well, it sucks to be you." See what kind of person I was being? My heart was already gone. I'd already belonged to somebody else, and I was just showing up pretending like I was in love with Jesus. Well, that was the day that I found it. And interestingly enough, I decided to drive in an area where prostitution is at. And I pulled up on a person who had walked away from, where the lights were at, where it'd be easier to have a conversation. I wouldn't get caught. I was hiding my sin in darkness. And I pulled up to what looked like a female, and I said, hey, I'm looking to score some dope. And she leans into the car and says, well, I need to let you know first that I'm not a woman, I'm a man. And I said, that's okay, I don't want any of that. I don't want that, I just want to get some drugs, and I think you can help me get it. So she jumps in the car, and we drive over to a spot, and she scores, and I kept my deal. I paid her, and I gave her some, and then it hit me. I was like, I don't have a way to get high. And so I asked her to borrow her pipe. And she says, well, I won't give it to you, but I'll lend it to you. I'll get high with you. So I brought this broken person into my house where I had loved on people, where I did ministry, where I swore I was going to use it for good. And I sat there for hours getting high on methamphetamine with him. And there was one point when she excused herself to use the restroom where it hit me. It was like, I just lost all right, privilege, and opportunity to share about God. Because how are you going to share about God when you're right there in the midst of the deepest, darkest part of the sin? We partied for a little bit longer, and I took her back to where she was at, which that scared me. And I proceeded to spend the next 4 or 5 days inside of my studio apartment, locked in, getting high. Lying to people who believed in me. Lying to people that thought that I had changed my life. Lying to people that trusted me. Texting into work saying that, hey, I can't make it, I don't feel good. And people come in knocking on the door, and I would say, oh, I'm too sick to get up. And about the last day, I hear this little knock on the door, and it's Brian. And he's got a little lisp, and he's like, Pastor. And I screamed. I said, dude, just get the blank off my doorstep, man. I don't need you. I don't want you. I'm sick. I don't feel good. Leave me alone. He says, I just want to pray for you. I've been working with this kid forever, man, and he finally got it. He's like, I just want to pray for you, man. And it hit me and was like, you know what, man, I'm doing bad. I got to, With what he did, he bought me back that day. And I got up, and yeah, shamefully, I lied. I went back to work, and I got back on it, and I started doing everything, and it's been one of the deepest shames in my life that have been hardest to share. And because I'm trying to build community here, and I'm trying to show you guys that I'm real and I'm not perfect, I expose myself in that. And if that disqualifies me from ministry, then that's fine. I'm glad you're not my God. But to connect the two together was like, it took God sending somebody to come and show me that I was worth being bought back. How many of us need that today? I got a lot of explaining to do. I got a lot of conversations I'm going to have after this. And one of the first people I'm going to call is Brian, because when I was writing this, he thanked me for everything I did in his life. And I said, nah, little homie, you saved mine. And I just want to remind you guys this morning that, you know what? That God has created this place, man. You may hate the building, and you may hate the way that people have treated you, and you may not understand what's going on, but God's created a place where we can come and where we can receive healing, and we can receive forgiveness, and we can begin again always. Because until you're dead, you haven't gone too far out of his reach. And so it's at this time we normally open up the altars and invite people if they want to pray, but you're more than welcome to stay where you're at and have your own private moment with God. But Oh, man, this doesn't feel like it's going the way I wanted it to, but I just want to thank you guys for the support you've given me and for the privilege and opportunity to do what God has called me to do and to be able to walk through life with a lot of you. And so as the worship band comes up and they start to play, I know there'll be people that are scattered around. They can pray for you, or if not, again, you can stay where you're at. And if God can reach me in a jail cell, He can reach you sitting in a pew. And so let me pray for you guys. God, I just thank you that there is no depth, God. There is no height. There is no east, no west. Far enough that you can't reach us, God. There's no amount of dirt. There's no sin, no hate, nothing that can cover us, God. But you love us so much that you send people to remind us that you're there to redeem us, God, that you're there to bring us back to you. God, thank you for the love that is indescribable, God, that I can't even begin to explain. God, that it outweighs anything that we pursue, anything we intimately wrap our heart and our lives around, God. You are just so much more than that, Father. So we thank you for that, even if it's our first time ever thanking you. God, thank you for redemption. Thank you for a chance to be set back on the right path, God. Thank you for reconciliation, God, for being made whole again. Thank you for loving us enough, again, to reach down in the depths, to reach down in the dirt, to reach down in the sickest part of our lives and pull us out and say, I just want you to act like you want me. So I think that's what God's saying this morning. He says, just start to act like you want me, and I'll show you how much I want you. Father, we just ask you to continue to bless this service, bless this time. Continue to move in our hearts, God. Continue to break us, shape us, mold us, and eventually just bring us back to a better understanding of who you are and what you want from us. It's in your name. Amen.